Hello again, everybody. For those of you that have figured out the pattern, when video starts off like this, it's generally going to be about a very serious subject, um, which this is about. So if serious pie is not your thing, then you may want to skip this one. You guys may have noticed that I have been making a ton of videos recently. It's mainly due to my mental health is deteriorating at a remarkable rate, and it's simply not possible for me to make a lot of the videos that I want to make and to keep in contact with all you guys, despite the fact that that's really what I want to be doing. I just can't. And I'm not really going to go into too many details why. It's personal, but it's, yeah. Anyway, the reason I'm making this video is because I was watching Philip DeFranco and his news show, and he had a story about the show 13 Reasons Why. And there's a lot of controversy about the show itself, and this particular issue and the way that Phil DeFranco himself reacted to it hits really close to home. And so I want to try and explain the idea that a lot of people in the mental health field and a lot of people that struggle with suicidal tendencies and self-harm, like myself, have with the show. One of the biggest things is people claim that it, quote, glorifies suicide. And the argument against it is, no, it shows how bad suicide is because it shows the impact that it has on everyone else and what a negative thing it was and blah, 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 blah. And we can argue about that until we're blue in the face. But I want to kind of show how a show like this could convince someone who is on the fence about suicide or is struggling with something like depression or crippling anxiety or bullying or quite a few other things, why something like this would convince them or could convince them that suicide is the best answer for the results that they want. I do have to preface this with the fact that I have not actually watched the show. Again, because of my already propensity towards self-harm and suicidal tendencies, I believe it would be a very bad idea to expose myself to something that talks about them so readily and so graphically. But I have read full synopses of each episode to better get an idea of what the show actually says. Now, again, a synopsis is not watching the show, and there is a lot that is communicated that won't be in a synopsis. So there is a possibility that I may get a few details wrong and things like that, but the overall idea, I think, is sound. And for those of you that think that I shouldn't be talking about this unless I actually watch it, it would be an extremely bad idea for me to watch it. I'm just going to end it like that. It is not something that is healthy for me to do. So the reason people will claim that it, quote unquote, glorifies suicide is the results of the suicide and the subjects of the 13 reasons. The premise of the show, for those of you that don't know, is a girl commits suicide, and before committing suicide, she records believe it's 7 tapes that give 13 reasons why she's killing herself. And each side of the tape is meant for to talk about one of the reasons why she's killing herself, and basically to bring to light what 13 different people did to her that would cause her to commit suicide. And the way it works is that apparently from the synopsis I read, each person is supposed to get the tapes, listen to them, and then send them to the next person on the list. And if they didn't send the tapes to the next person, then a separate set of tapes would be leaked to the public. So kind of a blackmail-ish idea of, hey, if you don't want the entire world knowing that you're one of the reasons that I committed suicide because of this, then you'll do what I tell you. So anyway, the show is 13 episodes long, so each episode deals the different side of a tape. Blah, blah, blah. Makes sense. So the idea behind glorifying suicide. In my mind, there are 2 different types of people that attempt to commit suicide. There are people like me who have some sort of incurable illness or defect or something that at least at that point in their life seems like something they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their life. And the pain and anguish of knowing that every single morning you're going to have to deal with this pain, you're going to have to deal with this thing that makes your life significantly more difficult. You eventually get to the point where you're like, you know what, I can't take this anymore. It's too hard to deal with this. It's never going to get better. So the only solution to stop the pain permanently is to kill myself. The other group of people that attempt suicide are people that are going through something very, very difficult, that they feel that there isn't a way to stop it, that they're not being listened to, that they're not able to change anything, but if they kill themselves, then people will listen to them. Then an effect will happen. Their death will give their life purpose. And the only purpose that their life can have is by dying. And those people in particular are the ones I believe 13 Reasons Why will convince that, yes, this is a good reason to kill myself. And the reason behind that is the end result of Hannah's death. Hannah is the character that kills herself in the show, I believe. I hope that is the right one. Yeah, Hannah, there we go. There were a lot of names. There's a lot of characters in this show, and there are lots of names anyways. The end result of Hannah killing herself and these tapes going out is the people that she blamed for her suicide get punished in a number of different ways. One of them, spoiler alert, one of them who was stalking Hannah and took pictures of her and another girl making out and spread them around school, got pictures of himself. The stalker, somebody took pictures of the stalker naked and spread them around school as a punishment. And that's kind of what happens to everybody in who's a subject of the tape, is they are somehow punished because of this suicide. Either they're punished through a guilt trip, they're punished through something more physical. One of the characters ends up raping actually two different people in the show, and the tapes prompt another character to actually secretly tape the rapist's confession to hopefully get him convicted of rape and put in prison. All of everyone that wronged this girl, and she made a tape about, every one of them gets punished. And the girl gets exactly what it was that she wanted, which is, you know, all these horrible things are happening to me. Nobody is willing to help me. Nobody is willing to do anything to stop these horrible things from happening. So if I kill myself and I make these tapes, this will force people to do something. Again, the idea of my life has no purpose. I have no control. I have no ability to do anything unless I kill myself. The purpose of my life is found in suicide. That is how it could be it could be interpreted as glorifying suicide, because that's what happens. Yes, it does show how many people are damaged by suicide, and it does give, from my understanding, again, I've read a synopsis, I haven't watched it. It does show the massive emotional turmoil that it puts so many different people through. The act of suicide puts people through. It's an incredibly damaging and horrible thing for anyone to go through. Having a member of your family commit suicide or a friend commit suicide, it changes you for life. There is no going back. And so in that aspect, I think the director was right when he says, no, we show the negative aspects of suicide and hopefully present it as, you know, if you commit suicide, this is what you're going to do to everybody else. However, the main theme of all of this, and the main thing that you can kind of take away from it, is everybody that wronged her gets punished for it. And if she hadn't committed suicide, they all would have gotten away scot-free. It's a very easy leap to make from the show. And while, yes, it does show the negative, it shows a quote-unquote positive... Wow, I totally just smacked my mic. Sorry about that. It shows a positive aspect of suicide, which isn't actually true. I myself have struggled with suicide. I had a friend whose brother committed suicide when I was in middle school. There isn't a positive aspect of suicide. There really isn't. As much as, like I said, it changes people. Your life is never the same after someone you know commits suicide. It never will be. It is a permanent change in your life. But the idea that by killing yourself some good can come from it doesn't actually work that way. It never has. I've never heard of a case of someone committing suicide and something good happening because of it. Ever. But in this case, in this show, that's exactly what happens. A rapist confesses to raping two girls and now possibly has the chance of actually having to pay for his crimes. A stalker who did something horrible was punished by having the exact thing that he did to someone else happen to him in a very vengeful manner. And all these people got to find out exactly what their impact was on this girl that committed suicide. and now they have to live with that guilt, and so the guilt is going to make them better people. That's not how suicide works. I've never heard of suicide ever making anyone's life better. It is always a bad thing. And this show doesn't show that. This show really does show that while, yes, it has an incredibly negative impact on everyone around, there are positive aspects to it. You know, if you record a bunch of tapes and then threaten to release them through a kind of bizarre form of blackmail, you can get people punished that you feel deserve to be punished. And that's not true. And it's a very dangerous mindset because, especially for people who have been marginalized and who have been bullied, I myself was one of those people. If I had been shown something like this when I was younger and I was dealing with emotional abuse and bullying and a lot of other things, I might not be here today. Because while now I understand the idea that vengeance doesn't actually solve anything, and I'm the kind of person that if somebody gets punished for something, my idea is the punishment should be something that prevents them from either doing it again to someone else or it somehow leads to a correction of the action, not simply punishing them because they did something bad, you know, an eye for an eye type thing. I am not a vengeance-oriented person because vengeance doesn't end well ever. If someone needs to pay for a crime, they need to, their payment should be something that prevents the crime from happening again, not makes them feel bad or punishes them specifically. The punishment should be created and designed specifically with the intent of preventing the crime from happening again. And sometimes just punishing someone and you know, making sure that they know what they did was wrong is enough to make sure the crime doesn't happen again. But again, the purpose of the punishment should not be, you're a horrible person, you should be punished. It should be, we have to find a way to make sure you can't do this again. So, anyway, if you're still watching this, I understand it's a long video, but this is a very complicated subject. To Philip DeFranco, Mr. DeFranco, if you are watching this, first of all, you have so much work ahead of you. Why in the hell are you wasting your time watching this? But if you are, I hope you get a better understanding of how people can think that this glamorizes suicide. It's not the fact that it doesn't show that suicide is horrible. It's the fact that this particular suicide did good. It got the bad people punished. And that's not a message we should be spreading because that's not how suicide works, despite the fact that there's a large group of people that are contemplating suicide specifically for that reason. If I kill myself, they'll learn. So that's what they mean. That's why this series is so dangerous, especially for young kids, because your emotions and your reasoning and logic are already not at a good level. Your brain is changing and because of puberty and everything else going on, because the chemical makeup of your entire body is changing, your reasoning and problem-solving skills suffer. Teenagers make bad choices. They always do. It's part of being a teenager. So something like this has the very real side effect of possibly causing teens to go, wait a minute, I'm not as crazy as I thought. See, suicide can get what you want. So I would like to, again, make the emphasis that suicide doesn't have a positive result. It never does. I sincerely despise the quote, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Because it's not. Like I said before, I have crippling anxiety and depression. I will have crippling anxiety and depression for my entire life. Um, the vast majority of medicines that are designed to treat those, I can't take. They're toxic to me. They will kill me. So for the rest of my life, I get to wake up every morning with a panic attack. And I have to deal with the fact that my brain makes me think things that are not true about myself. That's permanent. That never goes away. No matter all the therapy I go through and everything like that, that's something that I have to deal with for the rest of my life. So there have been a couple of times where I have made the decision that it's simply not worth it to have to wake up every morning and deal with that. I'm not saying that's the right answer. I'm still here. So obviously I didn't follow through with that decision. But this idea that suicide is this thing that happens when you're just in a deep, depression and you're not looking at the big picture is false. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that deal with things like chronic pain that's never going to go away, that deal with things like chronic anxiety, chronic depression, other more severe mental illnesses, physical illnesses that are never going to go away. And to tell them that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem is insulting. It really is. Am I saying suicide's the right answer? No, it never is. I've already said that. But I'm saying this idea that suicide only happens to people that are in the grips of depression or aren't thinking clearly is not true. There are a lot of incredibly intelligent people that have considered suicide because they can come up with rational reasons behind it. And that's the scariest thing in the world. When you actually can sit down, have a conversation with yourself and realize that you have a valid reason to not want to continue living that the way you are. I also want to just put out there, I am currently in therapy. I have a phenomenal therapist. I am not currently contemplating suicide, so if anyone is worried about me personally, I am fine. As I said, my mental state is, my mental health is degrading, and it's becoming more and more difficult for me to do very, very basic things. None of that has driven me to the point where I don't want to continue living. So yeah, that's all for me today. If you guys do decide to watch this show, please understand this is a Hollywood dramatization of a book. It's not real. Suicide doesn't have positive aspects. Suicide is not a way to get people punished that deserve to be punished. Suicide is not a way to make positive change. Suicide is ending someone's life. That's all there is to it. All right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.